Erev Tov, everyone. Let's continue working our way through Hilchot Pesach. We're going to cover all of Hilchot Pesach in the time that we have, but we can try. So last week we started talking about Bikat Chametz, Bitul Chametz, right? We explained why both are necessary, why Chazal were not satisfied with one doing either just Bidika or doing Bitul. They said we need to do both. And in that way we make sure that we don't transgress the prohibition of Bayirah Bal Yamatzav, owning Chametz. So what happens if a person neglected to fulfill one of those obligations, did only Bidika and Biur, or only did Bitul? Maybe a person decided, okay, Chazal said that the Bitul is not going to be Belev Shalem. I know myself, I'm going to do Bitul, it's going to be Belev Shalem. Never a good idea to do this. Never a good idea to go against Chazal. We have a case in the Gemara, fascinating Gemara Masechet Shabbat, about Rabbi Yishmael ben Elisha. It says, the Mishnah says that a person lo yikra le'or aneh. The candles that we have nowadays are a little bit different. The candles in the days of Chazal, you had a kli which had oil inside, a little sort of bowl, a clay container. It had oil inside, and you would put a wick inside as well. And when it's running low on oil, so what they would do, they would tilt the candle so that the oil would draw the wick, and then it would burn sufficiently. Now, to do that on Shabbat is going to be an Isur Malacha, Isur Doraita of Mav'ir, of burning the wick. So Chazal said, Lo yikra le'or aneh. That's the Mishnah in Masechet Shabbat. Says why? Because if a person is reading by the light of the candle, he may come to tilting. So then the Gemara says, Gemara explains, don't read by the light of the candle, you might come to tilt it. And Rabbi Yishmael says, I know myself. I'm not going to tilt the candle. I can read. Everybody else, there's a discussion. The Gemara says, Adam Chashuv, Bishani, a person who is Chashuv, who's mechubad, wouldn't tilt the candle. But he says, I can do it. I'm not going to tilt the candle. And then two versions in the Gemara of what happened. One version is that he was reading and he was about to tilt the candle and he remembered. So he stopped and he said, Kama Gedolim Divrei Chachamim. How great are words of the sages. The other version of the Gemara is that he was reading and he did tilt the candle. And he said, again, Kama Gedolim Divrei Chachamim. And he says, I will write, it says he wrote in his pinkas, he wrote in his notebook that when the Beit HaMikdash is rebuilt, he'll have to bring a Korban Chatat because of what he did. That's, by the way, one of the sources, we've discussed it before, but when we say, Kol ha'osek b'torat chatat, when nowadays we don't have korbanot, so we study korbanot, we read the psukim, or we read the words of Chazal dealing with the korbanot, that comes in lieu of the korbanot. So does it really take the place, or would we still have to, when the Beit HaMikdash is rebuilt, if we've been saying korbanot all along, are we still going to actually have to come and bring korbanot? So one side to say, based on this Gemara, is that yes, you will have to. That's why Rabbi Yishmael kept a note of it. Maybe we should all be keeping note of how many chatat we have to bring. In any event, but that's why you should always listen to the words of Chazal. That's one reason. But so what happens if a person only did the bidika or only did the biur? Or question which could be relevant for many people this year. Truth is, this question started coming up during COVID. Now, there are a lot of these cases which you go through and you read in the halakha, these obscure cases, extreme cases, and you think, when is this ever going to come up? When is this ever going to be relevant? And then COVID came, and all sorts of things which we thought would never be relevant were suddenly halakha l'maaseh. And now we're at war, and all sorts of things which we thought would never be relevant are halakha l'maaseh. So Torah is eternal. So let's say you have a chayal who, again, before, if it was within 30 days, we discussed last week, within 30 days, you should do bdika anyway. But before 30 days, people have been out there for months. This chayal, let's say, was called up, and more than 30 days before he left his home, he's now out there in Gaza somewhere. He's got the chametz at home, so he can't do the bdika. There's nobody else to do the bdika. Let's say in the situation he's not able to sell it. Okay, so all he can do is he can do bitul. Do bitul. That's what he has to do, and then he can say wherever he is, for whatever chametz is in my possession is hefker ka'afra da'ara. Okay, so he does bitul, but he hasn't done bdika. So now when he comes back, and he's got the chametz in his house, which he did bitul as he was meant to before Pesach, is he now allowed to eat from that chametz? Is he allowed to benefit from that chametz after Pesach? That's our question. So the Shulchan Aruch, Siman Taf Mechet, says the following. He says, chametz shenimtza b'beit Yisrael achar Pesach. This is the siman that deals with chametz she'avar alav Pesach. It deals with mechirat chametz and that whole sugya. So he says, chametz shenimtza b'beit Yisrael achar Pesach. If there is chametz which is found in a Jew's home after Pesach, Asur afal pi shebitlo. Says even though you have done bitul, it would be forbidden. What is forbidden? Forbidden to eat. Forbidden. The Mishnah Berurah says, yeah, afilu b'hana'ah, even to derive benefit. So the case there seems to be, so it's not clear. Shulchan Aruch doesn't tell us, did this person do bdika, or did he find it afterwards, right? But certainly in a case where one just did bitul, but did not do bdika, and then you found the chametz in your home after Pesach, that's exactly what Chazal said. Chazal said, the reason we're not going to suffice with you just doing bitul is because maybe your bitul isn't belev shalem. Maybe you don't really mean it, and then you've transgressed. And therefore, the way to enforce that is the following case, that if a person did bitul before Pesach, only bitul and not bdika, then we say now you have a knas. You did your bitul, that's fine. But after Pesach, you have to prove that your bitul was sincere, and therefore you cannot benefit from that chametz ever. You're not happy.
I don't think the soldier can get a knas.
I haven't gone to. I've said it. We haven't gone to him yet, but we're building it up one step at a time. But that's the ordinary case. Again, we're going to see. That's the ordinary case where a person had within their capabilities to do the bdika as well. Okay, so somebody did bdika and bitul. Well, that's exactly the question. If I'm not doing mechirat chametz, I'm not relying on mechirat chametz, and I do bdika. So what do you do with the chametz that you found? You have to get rid of it. Okay, so he didn't get rid of it. That means he's just relying on the bitul. So he's not doing what Chazal said he has to do. So he didn't sell it. He didn't destroy it. He's just relying on the bitul. That's exactly the case. That's what. So okay, so that's the first stage. The first stage is clearly if a person didn't do bdika, then we have a problem. So I'll read you the Mishnah Berurah. He says like this. He says, right? You did bitul before Pesach, so you did not transgress bal yira'eh. Nonetheless, the sages were concerned. שאם נתירו כשביטלו, יש לחוש שיניח כל אדם חמצו לאחר פסח, ויאמר שפטורו קודם הפסח, כדי שנתיר לו. If we say that it's allowed, so everybody's going to do this. Everybody's going to, b'dikat chametz, I got to clean everything out. I'll just do the bitul, and afterwards I'll keep my chametz. So they said no. Now he says like this. So that's the case where you didn't do b'dikat. V'da, דכמה האחרונים כתבו, דאפילו בדק גם כן כמנהגנו ונמצא חמץ לאחר פסח, גם כן אסור בהנאה. So he says, here's the case, that if a person did everything they were meant to do, I mean, they did b'dika, and they did the bitul, okay? Sometimes it happens, again, you weren't negligent, you did your b'dika, you did it properly, but sometimes it happens, there is, I don't know, there's a cookie under the couch, or whatever it is, you found the chametz afterwards. So there are those achronim, he says, who say, lo chilku b'davar. We have a principle, Chazal, lo plug. We don't distinguish. Chazal said you can't benefit from chametz which you did bitul on. So here too you can't get benefit. Now, yesh min achronim shemekilim bebadak ubetel v'nimtza achar kach demay avalei lamevad alei asa kol kedin. However, in that case, there are those achronim who say, look, you did everything you were supposed to do. You did your b'dikat chametz. You did your bitul chametz. It wasn't your fault. Afterwards, after Pesach, now you find something. You haven't done anything wrong. You haven't transgressed. What's the problem? So that's our first machloket. There are those achronim who say that because of the principle of lo plug, that we say no, it's going to be forbidden. But there are those who say you did everything you were meant to do. There's no knas. There's no problem. What's the hachra'ah? Says the Mishnah Berurah, he said at least for benefit that we should not make it forbidden. So says the Mishnah Berurah, for case of hefsed merubeh, in a case of great loss, he says there we can rely on it. Now he brings another case, okay, which is even more that again. That is the case where you did everything that you were meant to do, but it was within your capability to do bdika, to do biur, to do bitul, to do everything. You did everything, but you found something after Pesach. Then we say if it's hefsed merubeh, if it's great loss, you can rely on it. If it's just to give my example from earlier, I bluskaya far, I had to find a cookie or chocolate donut that was left behind underneath the couch. It's okay that you can throw away. If you found it that was underneath the couch, you should probably throw it away anyway. But that's something else. Now, here's the other case. This is a little bit more extreme. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Im haya b'derech v'nizkar sheyesh lo chametz b'toch beito. This is seemingly similar to our case. Somebody was on a journey somewhere, you're not at home, you're far away, in Khan Yunis, whatever it is, and you suddenly remember that you have chametz at home. V'lo haya lo lemי למכור ערב Pesach כתיקון. For whatever reason, you don't have anybody there that you can sell it to, you're unable to perform chirat chametz. ועמד והפקיר בפני עדים החמץ שבתוך ביתו. Okay, now it's interesting. The case he gives, he doesn't say bitul. He says you made it hefker in front of witnesses. Nonetheless, as we've already discussed, that it could be, according to many, seemingly according to the Mishnah Berurah himself, it's the same yesod, it's the same fundamental in terms of why bitul works and why hefker works. But he says, okay, you made it hefker. Nir'eh tiyuchal lismoch bazeh adat hamekilim. He says, in this case, it would seem that you can rely on the lenient approach. After Pesach, you can go, you can reacquire this chametz, and you can benefit from it.
You have to move it out.
The case, it's not with him. The case,
He came back.
no. After Pesach, he's going to come back. The case is that he's away. He's on a sfinai, he's on a ship, he's in Medinat Hayam, whatever it is. But he's unable to, he doesn't have access to the chametz. If he has access to the chametz of Pesach, then he should go and get rid of it. Or sell it, or whatever it is. But he can't. So he says, here in this case, yes, you can rely on the mekilim. Why? The chametz wasn't with him. And therefore, you couldn't sell it. You couldn't destroy it the way that Chazal required. By the way, you see something here very interesting. We talk about mechirat chametz. So the whole procedure of mechirat chametz has gone through a few different gilgulim throughout the generations. But the most lekatchila way to sell chametz would be someone takes the chametz and gives it to the non-Jew that they acquire it. Yeah, it's in your house, it's in a cupboard, it's locked up. Okay, we can talk about that, and there are those who rely on it. And there are good reasons for those who do rely on that, but that is a secondary way, that is a more b'diavad form of sale. Yeah, he's talking about the way that you sell it is you actually give it to the purchaser. But in any event, he says, all right, because you couldn't sell it and you couldn't destroy it, you had to make it hefker, or you had to do bitul. That was really the only thing that you could do, in order not to transgress bal yareh. Therefore, in this case, there's no knas, there's no penalty, he hasn't done anything wrong at all, and therefore we can allow him to go back and reacquire the chametz after Pesach. Now that would seemingly be the case that I mentioned to you at the beginning. The case of the chayal, he's out there, we can add other factors into the mix as well to be more lenient. But since he has absolutely no access to his chametz and does the bitul, we would seem to be can rely on that. I would add as well that the way that we do mechirat chametz nowadays, so it's probably easier. Again, if he were to appoint a shaliach it can be done in a second on the phone, tell somebody a shaliach to sell the chametz, and I would say like this, in that case, that even if it's somebody who ordinarily wouldn't rely on mechirat chametz or mechirat chametz gamor, there where you really have no recourse and no other alternative, there I would say that lekatchila one could rely on that mechira and go back and use that chametz after Pesach. Rabbi Hanania ben Akash omer tzakadosh baruch hu lezakot Yisrael lefachach ba lahem Torah mitzvot shnei ma'adanai chavetz man tzilko yagdir Torah v'yator. Amen. Amen.
I made my drinking falls into the whole rain.